We have a quorum. I call to order the meeting. As we will make use of the request to speak system, please do not change your seat after you're seated. Agenda item number 1, information paper issued since the last meeting. There is no information paper issued since the last meeting by the Secretariat. Agenda item number 2, items for discussion at the next meeting. The Secretariat on the 25th of October circulated LC paper number CB bracket 1942/2022 to members, informing members that the December meeting will be held on the 13th of December 2023, Wednesday, 8:30 a.m. The administration proposes to discuss the following items, including Capital Works Reserve Fund block allocation in 2024 to 25, and supply of Dongjiang River. Do members agree to the set items? Any objection? No? Thank you. Now we move on to the next agenda item, that is item 3, Public Works Project item number 7268RS, cycle track between Tsuen and Tuen, detailed design, site investigation and construction. Stage 2. The relevant government officials are already here in the conference room. This item involves funding proposal. According to Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure, if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest in relation to the item, please disclose the nature of the interest before you speak. Welcome, government officials, for attending the meeting. I will first invite the administration to walk us through the item with the aid of the PowerPoint slide. Undersecretary, thank you. We are promoting the new territory cycle track network with 80 kilometers in total. 60 kilometers have been completed. Now we come to the members on the funding allocation on stage 2 of the cycle track and the detailed designs of stage 2B of the project. Hopefully we can obtain funding for the project. Perhaps I invite my colleague to walk us through the item. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. We are here to talk about this project 7268RS and upgrading the project to Category A for the construction works of Stage 2A and detailed design and site investigation of Stage 2B under Stage 2 of the cycle track. Hopefully, we can gauge members' views in this meeting for the scrutiny of the Public Works Subcommittee and approval of the Finance Committee. Let me take a few minutes to talk about the project. As mentioned by the Undersecretary, the new tertiary cycle track network is 80 kilometers in length. It covers a large area, including Maonshan, Shatin, Taipo, Fanlin, Shenshui, Yunnan, Tuen, all the way to Tsuen. The 16-kilometer cycle track from Tuen and Maonshan, from Tsuen and Bayview Garden, and the track from Samuntai to Taipo has been completed in 2021, 22, and 23. The remaining cycle track from Tsuen to Tuen of about 70 or 17 kilometers go along as Castle Peak Road and the waterfront. As this cycle track is rather long and there is some challenges involved, including the topography, the traffic, and technological challenges. So we adopt different phases in taking forward the project. Hopefully this cycle track can be opened as soon as possible. The second stage project includes a 3.6 kilometer cycle track from Tuen to Sokun Wat and relevant footpaths and facilities. Apart from 200 meters of cycle bridge with footpath connecting Kaduri Beach and Cafeteria Old Beach, they are built along the roads. We have completed the tendering exercise and the public consultation work. So we will take forward this section of the road first. The second part include a section of 9.2 kilometers long, along with relevant ancillary facilities. By the end of last year, we completed the public engagement work. Most of the members of the public and organizations support the construction of the cycle track, and they want us to complete the works as soon as possible. Let me go into detail on Stage 2 and 2A and 2B. Stage 2A involves the cycle track from Hin Fat Lane to Castle Peak Road to Kwun Ching Road in So Kwun Wat. It's 3.6 kilometers in length, including an about 200 meters long cycle bridge connecting Kaduri Beach and Cafeteria Old Beach. At Hin Fat Lane, Castle Peak Beach, Cafeteria Old Beach, and Kwun Ching Road, we will provide some parking areas for bicycles. We will also realign a section of Hoi Wing Road. And we also have some ancillary works, including waterworks, drainage, slopes, and retaining walls, utilities, street lighting, and so on. We will implement environmental mitigation measures and environmental monitoring audit program. On the detailed design of Stage 2B, it is a cycle track of 9.2 kilometers long connecting Sukut Wat and Ting Kau, passing Siu Lam, Tai Long, Nam Chong, Ching Long Tau, and Sam Ching. We will conduct the detailed design and site investigation work, including designing the cycle track and the associated technical assessment, environmental impact assessment, supervision, and preparation of tender documents and assessment of tenders. On the implementation program, Stage 2A has been approved by the Chief Executive-in-Chief. On 12th and 19th of May 2023, we have gazetted the authorization notice of roadworks. From August to October this year, we have conducted tendering for the project. After approval by the Finance Committee, we will start construction of Stage 2A and start the detailed design and site investigation works of Stage 2B of the project. For the Stage 2A cycle track, we will start construction in Q1 2024, and we estimate that it will be completed in 4 years. After approval by the Finance Committee, we will start awarding tenders. We target that the site investigation work will be completed in 2 years. On the estimated cost of the project, Stage 2A will cost about $890.2 million in money of the day prices. About 80% of the cost is in relation to Stage 2A, while 20% of the cost will be for Stage 2B. On the breakdown of the cost, we will detail it in the paper submitted to the Public Works Subcommittee. In Q1 2024, we will report and seek approval from the Public Works Subcommittee and Finance Committee. Thank you. Now is the time for questions. There are 8 members who have pressed the button. Let me read out the order. Chow Man Kong, Kenneth Lau, Chen Yupming, Wendy Hong, Andrew Lam, Holden Chow, Lau Kwok Fan, and Lo Wai Kwok. 4 minutes per members, including question and answer. Mr. Chow Man Kwong, or Dr. Chow Man Kwong. Thank you, Chairman. It will be best if we can complete the new territory cycle track as soon as possible. for the development of culture and tourism in Hong Kong. But in terms of timeline or timetable and cost, there are some problems. In 2012, we already had the detailed design. Why did we have to wait until 13 years before the construction should start? And we also should look at the cost. In 2016, we target to build 16 km a cycle track connecting Yunlong and Shenzhen. The cost was only $370 million. We were talking about 6 to 7 years ago. The cost per meter is about 33,000, but now it's $190,000. Is the inflation that strong? I would like to know about the reason. Also, I would like to ask about the timetable. The 11 kilometer took only 4 years to complete, but we're only building 3.6 kilometers. Now, that accounts to about 1/3 of the length, but it takes 4 years. Can we compress the timetable? If we want to make the cycle track convenient for the people, at the entrance and exits and along the residential developments, we should build some parking spaces for bicycles. For stage 2B and stage 1, can you talk about your construction timetable apart from stage 2A? Thank you. Your first question relates to planning because the planning started in 2012. The 18-kilometer long cycle track, we have already completed 60 km. We will start the section that is easier to construct, but for some part of the cycle track is more difficult because some part of it falls outside of the road section, and there are some residents who object to the project. So we took some time to take care of the views of the local residents, and we want to do better planning. From 2009, we obtained the first funding approval. We have been working on the cycle track. There are some section that was more difficult to build because we have to take care of local views. Let me also talk about the cost issue. It is difficult for us to look at the matter or the cost on average. We only need to conduct a site formation and draw the boundary for cycle track in some section. But for 200 meters of the cycle track, it does not fall on any public roads. If we have to do it, we have to demolish some buildings or resume land from private owners. So for some 200 meters of the section, we have to build cycle bridge. The cost is almost 10 times higher. Because we have accounted for the return tender price in the cost is actually comparable to the cycle track of the other cycle tracks in new territories. The scale of the project is quite significant. Cycle bridge is similar with pedestrian bridge. If we compare the cost between cycle bridge and a pedestrian bridge, they are very similar. On timetable, why does it take so long? We have to construct a cycle bridge over waters, so it's quite difficult. For the rest of the section, we will complete them in 2.5 years. For the 4-year section, we're talking about the most difficult part. We will provide 200 parking spaces for bicycles. We are happy to provide parking spaces in private residential developments as well, but some local residents don't want us to build parking areas in front of their developments because they think that is noisy. For stage 2B of the project, the first stage is more difficult because some of the section falls within the Victoria Harbour and it involves the protection of the harbour ordinance. So after completion of the detailed design in February, we will also start stage 1 in parallel. Hopefully we can complete the section in 2.5 years. Thank you.
As Ms. Young has said, there will be more information to be supplied. So let's wait for that so that we can understand why the unit cost has been escalated from the basic figure of $33,000. Surely we can provide the information to you, Chair. Next, Mr. Kenneth Lau. Thank you, Chair. For this new territory cycle track network, it originates from Ma On Shan all the way to Tuen Mun, Tsuen Wan. And today we are mainly talking about the section between Tuen Mun and Tsuen Wan, measuring 7 km. Well, I think it is mainly running along the waterfront Castle Peak Road. I think for the keen cyclists in Tsuen Wan and Tuen Mun, they will welcome it. Let's hope that it can be completed ASAP. Well, it is quite a lengthy stretch, and then the level is uneven. There will be problems with traffic management as well as land rights. Now, for the road there, we need to widen it to 4 lanes with a lot of residential buildings completed and population intake. The traffic is going to be busy. So during the construction stage, I just want to know how you can minimize the noise nuisance. And then in relation to the existing residents and the future residents, what is the traffic impact? We are, of course, concerned about the high cost. You told us that it's mainly because part of it will be elevated. Is it because you don't want to affect the residents, or would you like to make sure that there will be a sea view, and so you want to run it along the waterfront? Now, for cycle tracks, I think bicycles are available for hire because not everybody owns a bicycle. So would you provide for that along the track? And then for the cycle tracks, sometimes people may have an accident and get hurt, but it seems that you don't have any first aid stations. Would you make sure that there will be first aid boxes, say for example, so that people can dress their wounds and stop the bleeding? It seems that you don't get it along the New Territory Cycle Track Network. I have to declare interest. I do own properties along the track. I think we heard your message loud and clear. That is, have it done ASAP. Well, we have tried to strike a balance. Can we do away with the option of having a bridge, but then the alternative is to resume land or demolish others' properties? There is a social cost to it, and we have been liaising with the local residents. We try to strike a balance, and we believe that we have come up with the most appropriate arrangement. Now, the cost may be relatively higher, but then when you compare it with projects of a similar scale, I think the cost is reasonable. For the cycle bridge, we have carefully balanced the interests, and we come up with this idea. It is only a matter of 200 meters long of the track that will be in the form of a cycle track. Now, it is going to be along the waterfront. If it is accessible by vessels, we will make use of the water route. Otherwise, we need to rely on land transport. We do have liaison with the police, among other departments, to make sure that it is smooth. We have a liaison group. If you're concerned with noise nuisance or traffic management issues, we can certainly sort them out. Departments are experienced. We have different mitigatory measures to address the nuisance like noise. What about bicycles for hire? There are 6 gathering points, so to speak, along the track. For this particular stretch, we don't, even though we have got cycle parking areas. For Tuen Mun, we have got such gathering places for hiring services. I've been to Tuen Mun. I know that there are shops that make bicycles available for hire. For first aid stations, first aid boxes, Let me defer to the departments to give you the information. Who will take the question? Mr. Chen. I'll try, Mr. Chairman. Well, for the proposed alignment, part of it will be on the beach, and there are such facilities on the beach, and we'll make use of that so as to come up with some sort of assistance. For other parts of the track, we'll try to see if it is possible. We'll come back with a reply. Some simple first aid provisions. People may fall from their bicycles, and it's better we have got something to stop the bleeding. Now, if you expect people to use the facilities on the beach, make sure you have got the right signage. It will be difficult to go there with your bicycle. It won't be that complicated. I think we just have to provide the signage. And then at the detailed design stage, we'll give full consideration to that. That is, if first aid facilities or boxes are needed, we'll provide for that. Ms. Chen Yutming. Well, I think the New Territories Cycle Track Network is a mega project of the SARG. We're talking about the stretch between Tuen and Tsuen. I'm sure you will enjoy a good sea view. I think we need to support the broad direction of the project. But then we are talking about $890 million, and 80% will be used for the 3.6 km long section. Well, I'm afraid we don't have a lot of details from the paper. I'm also concerned about the detailed design and site investigation works of Stage 2B. It accounts for 20% of the total cost, $178 million, and we are talking about 9 km long track. Last time we talked about the case of Long Gu Tan, as well as the river terminal. They only asked for $179 million. Here we don't need to fell trees or resume land, 9 km only, and yet we have to spend an amount similar to that for Long Gu Tan, just a matter of a difference of $10 million. So please explain. Well, this will go to the PWC to seek approval. I would suggest that the Deputy Secretary give us an oral reply, and then later on give us more information in writing at the PWC meeting. Explain more about the costs as well as the components, so that the PWC will get more information before we approve it or otherwise. Thank you. I thank Ms. Chen for her comments. I agree that we need to provide more information about the costs after the meeting. Let me comment on the nature of the projects. Next time, it was the planning and engineering study for Long Gu Tan. It's a feasibility study. Here, it is a detailed design project. Usually, for detailed design work, we need to bore holes. So when compared to a P&E study, it is not a matter of direct comparison. Usually it is more costly to have a detailed design. But of course, as Ms. Chen suggested, we'll give you more information before we go to the PWC and the FC to justify the cost. Thank you. Any follow-up? No, thank you. Next, Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you, Chair. I would also like to ask a question about the timetable. In year 2007, the study was commenced to have a track between Tsuen and Tuen. It started 16 years ago. In 2011, a paper was submitted to the LegCo to ask for $28 million for the advanced works as well as the design and site investigation for Stage 1. And well, at first it was said that in 2015 work would commence, and 2019 it will be put into operation. But we are only here being asked to give you money for the detailed design and site investigation of the first stage. What has happened? There is a gap of over 10 years. And then we have been told that for stage 1, we have got no progress. It is all because of the concerns about the protection of harbor ordinance. But then, was that alerted to you? It is all because I know that for that piece of legislation, it was well in existence. And then for stage 2, for stage 2B, you ask for money for the detailed design and site investigation. When compared with 2012, we are talking about a 6 times increase in relation to the unit cost. Why didn't you come to get the money for the whole lot instead of having it phased, and yet we are now forced to face a cost increase? And then for the construction costs, for advanced works carried out in the past, I think it's a matter of having to spend 3 times more money for stage 2A construction. Why? Well, let me explain. It seems that we have been working on it since 2012. In 2012, we got money for the advanced works. We tried to attempt to do the easier part first. For stage 1 works, we have got a lot of views, and it's a more complex issue. When compared with other components, we're able to complete 2 km's track. So it is not true to say that there was no progress at all, but we'd like to deal with the easier ones first. For stage 1, we have got many comments. In year 2013-2014, we were told that in relation to the alignments, in relation to the parking areas, etc., there were lots of views. In 2016-2017, we went to the District Council 5 times. They would like to have a more detailed discussion with us. When the track is ready for use, we hope that it is one that suits the needs of the local people. So we would rather spend more time to deal with the local comments, and we try to see if we can meet their aspirations. As to why the site investigation could not have been carried out in one go, well, let me explain. Well, we'll have to decide on the alignment first. It also depends on the public views, whether you want to have a bridge or whether you want to have it inland. Sometimes people will say that if you have it along the waterfront, the residential buildings will be affected. But if you have it outside the view of the sea, then you don't enjoy a good view. So we have to carry out, when we have to carry out site investigation, we need to decide on the alignment first. Because if the alignment is to be changed, then the site investigation will be abortive work. So we want to have better planning first before we move on to the details. In that way, we don't have to get involved in abortive work. What about costs? Yes, I've already explained the details. More details will be provided. And I hope that members will understand that if we are working on a piece of formed and level land, vis-a-vis having to build a bridge, then it is not a matter of direct comparison. It's a matter of comparing apples with oranges. Surely after the meeting, we can give you information to tell you that the costs are similar when it comes to building it on level land. For the cycle bridge, the cost is similar to that for pedestrian footbridges. I think you need to tell us why the cost has been more than doubled.
Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Chairman. I have 2 questions. First, on the cost. I don't want to compare apple with orange, but I have information on San Moon Chai cycle track of 900 meters that cost less than $7 million. That cost about $7,500 per meter. I understand that we need to build a cycle bridge, but it only lasts 200 meters. That means 3.4 km is on land. So if you times 3.4 km with $80,000, it cost only $200 million. So the 200 meters cost $500 million. You don't have to answer me right now. Please think through it. please break down your costs in detail when you go to the Public Works Subcommittee. Second, I have a question on paragraph 12 of the paper. When you were conducting public consultation, some members of the public questioned the necessity of the project. In paragraph 8, it mentions that protection of the harbor ordinance is involved, and you have to assess if there is overriding public need of the cycle track. If there is someone who questions if there is an overriding public need involved, what is your question? If someone actually put this question to you, what would your answer be? Thank you. The numbers provided by Mr. Lam actually proves that it is the case that the bridge is more expensive. I will provide you with more information so that you can monitor the reasonableness of our work. Some part of the cost involve stage 1 temporary reclamation under the protection of the harbor ordinance. We have experience in this area. If we have to prove that there is an overriding public need, we have to prepare a CCM document. I don't remember the Chinese name of it, but it's a cogent and convincing materials. After preparing this cogent and convincing materials, we can prove that there is overriding public need for the project. Say in Eastern Corridor, we constructed a footpath, and we went through the preparation of CCM that proved that there is a overriding public need that justifies the needs of reclamation. We are only conducting temporary reclamation here for us to construct the cycle bridge. Any follow-up question, Mr. Lam? No. Next, Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, Chairman. On this section of the cycle track between Tsuen and Tuen, I understand that there is a need, but I have two questions. On costs, the Undersecretary said that you have to construct cycle bridge and you have to conduct site investigation. That is why the cost is so high. Please provide us with a detailed breakdown when you go to the PWSD. Otherwise, we don't understand the high cost. Second, I would like to ask about the construction that is underway from Hoi Wing Road to Samsing, all the way to Castle Peak Road and the beach, and then all the way to the beach. For the stage 2A of the project, apart from the section along the beach, for the rest of the section from Hoi Ying Road to Samsing to Castle Peak Road, all the way to So Kun Wat, Undersecretary, as you understand, there is already road widening work there. Can you explain to us? Well, I understand that the section along the beach will be somewhere near the beach, but for a cycle track near the existing vehicular road, what will be the impact caused to the vehicles there? I can only assess based on my own experience. I understand that there is already a lot of road widening works along those parts of the roads from So Kun Wat to Tsuen Wan. Can you talk about the road works? Thank you. I think that Mr. Chow is talking about Castle Peak Road, the green section, and the red section near Hoi Wing Road. For the details of the works, I will invite the CEDD to talk about that. When we want to make use of parts that are not existing vehicular road to construct the cycle track. So after completion of the cycle track, the traffic capacity will not be reduced. During construction period, we will try to minimize the impact caused to the traffic, and we will have temporary traffic arrangements. We will talk to the relevant departments, and we have a liaison group with local residents. When they have comments, we will make appropriate adjustments. As to how we make use of certain parts of the road that are not in use, I will invite the CEDD to talk about that. For the cycle track along Castle Peak Road, we will make use of the section near the pedestrian footpath to create a cycle track. But some relocation of facilities may be involved. And we may have to relocate some part of the facilities. At Hoi Wing Road, there will be a realignment. Between the two roads, there is a central divider, and we will make use of that central divider, and we will divert traffic. After relocation, we will make use of some part of the pedestrian footpath so that we can have 4+2, that is 4 meter wide of pedestrian footpath and 2 meters wide of a cycle track. From Hoi Wing to Sam Sing, there is already a lot of the road widening work. I would like to know if existing vehicular traffic will be affected. If you have more information, please give them to us. Thank you. Please also talk about how you mitigate traffic impact. There are a few more members who would like to ask questions, including Chan Hock Fung, Doreen Kong, Nixie Lam, and Tan Ka Piu. Next, Deputy Chairman, Mr. Lau Kwok Fan. Thank you, Chairman. On the cost and details of the project, I will leave it to the Public Works Subcommittee to discuss that. When we have a detailed breakdown, we can look at the cost in detail. During this meeting of the panel on development, I will ask broader questions. This cycle track connects East and West New Territories from Ma On Shan, Sha Tin, Tai Po, Fan Lin, Shen Shui, Tuen Mun, all the way to Tsuen. For the remaining 20 km of the cycle track, we have to complete it. So what is the cost-effective way to take forward the project? I think that we can collect share our experience. I think that the cycle track will also promote tourism. Apart from building this cycle track, will you include photo-taking spots to promote the cycle track? I have a suggestion. This cycle track connects East and West New Territories. I think that this is only the first step. In the Northern Metropolis, we will adopt green transportation. Bicycle is a form of green transportation. In the 4 major zones of the Northern Metropolis, we will have a blue-green recreational zone. After construction of the 80 km of the cycle track, can we have another part of the cycle track to connecting to the blue-green recreational zone? In Loken, for example, there are a lot of cyclists there, and there was some accidents that happened. Can we have some sections of the cycle track there, if possible? Will you consider extending the cycle track to the Shuttlecock economic zone to protect safety of the cyclists and build a new landmark? Thank you. Thank you for your comment. We want to focus on building the 80 km of the cycle track, but I agree that when it's feasible, we should extend our network because we are developing the Northern Metropolis. It's a great opportunity for us to improve the cycle track. in terms of planning, we want to encourage cycling. We always talk about this 15-minute living circle so that we can walk or cycle to the places that we need to go from our home in Kawichao Artificial Islands and Northern Metropolis, for example. If it's possible, we will try to expand the cycle network and complement the development of the Northern Metropolis. Thank you. This is a U-shaped cycle track from Manganshan to Tsuen. I hope that we can do a inverted U-shaped cycle track covering Shanghai, Pak Nai, Shuttlecock. The Southern District has an island trail, hopefully they have a rounded island trail. Hopefully we can have the same thing in the North Union Territories. Thank you. Please look into these suggestions. Thank you. Next, Dr. Lo Wai-Kwok. Thank you, Chairman. The government wants to build an 80 km of the New Territory cycle track network. This policy objective has the support of the Legislative Council when it was first proposed a number of years ago. Even during the chaotic times of the Legislative Council, this project had the support of the Legislative Council members. I'm happy to see that it's being implemented. I don't see any reason to object to the project. Different section of the cycle track has its own difficulties and challenges. I'm happy to see that we have come this far. I am sure that the government will respond to the questions of the members. Hopefully, when you go to the PWSC, you can explain about the high cost of some particular section of the cycle track. Please do a detailed explanation. Please don't just say that it's reasonable and is comparable to the previous project. I would not accept such explanation. I understand that some section of the cycle track will be more expensive. I hope that the government can explain in detail. I will not talk about detailed construction work here. I'm sure that the government has put in much effort in designing the entire cycle track network. I would like to ask about the promotion of the use of bicycles. I have an important and interesting question. Chairman, in the mainland and in other countries, they have this shared use bicycle application. As we travel, we see shared use bicycles on the street, and it's easy to use. And the users always park their bicycles back to the parking spaces, and it's usually very tidy. But in Hong Kong, the situation is quite different. This is a market operation issue, but in terms of policy, can the government help promoting this shared use bicycle initiative? Perhaps it involves also other departments on top of the Development Bureau. A lot of my friends are confused as to why we don't have this shared use bicycle system in Hong Kong. Thank you. Undersecretary, please. Thank you for understanding. I heard a lot of questions on cost. I would rather to provide members with paper detailing the numbers instead of having me talk about the figures. Shared use bicycle involves operation and management. It's not under the remit of our bureau, but in terms of development, we have conditions to have people use bicycles because we will provide for parking areas for bicycles involving 200 parking spaces. In Kai-Tak, we also have parking spaces for bicycles. Should we allow shared use bicycles to park in our parking spaces? We do have infrastructure for such initiative. Thank you.
Next, Mr. Chen Hofung. Thank you, Chair. Well, of course, we all welcome the construction of a cycle track. It is green. It is said that it should be linking up all parts of new territories. It is good. I would like to ask a question about the operation. Well, if you are in Kowloon or Hong Kong Island, if you want to go to the new territories to ride bicycle, you need to hire a bicycle. As has been pointed out by Dr. Low, shared bikes are not that popular. In the past, we tried to ride from Taiwan to other parts of the new territories, and we just returned the hired bike elsewhere. So what are you going to do to facilitate non-bicycle owners? Others who may own a bicycle, they may want to take the bicycle on their own private cars. So do you have sufficient parking spaces for such private cars? Would you designate a space? When we go out on site visits, we have smart bicycle parking grounds. We know that, in fact, you can store the bicycles underground. It is a smart system. Do you think that you can do it in our parks and making it available for hire as well? Now that we're constructing a cycling track, and we are, of course, aware that the Transport Department is looking at all sorts of electrical bicycles. Well, of course, they run at a higher speed. Would you allow them to use the cycle tracks as well? Thank you. A few questions here. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Well, in Tuen Mun, Tin Shui Wai, Shang Shui, and Tsuen Wan, we have got bicycle gathering places, and we allow for hiring of bicycles. Well, in fact, we have got shop operators letting bicycles. So the market has responded to this need. Now, if you take your bicycle on your own car and you want to find a parking space, we may not actually be building a car park, but then there are always car parks nearby. Say, for example, we've got a number of beaches along the track and there are parking spaces. There are also commercial car parks. And at residential developments, you can also find private car parking spaces. You can then park and ride your own bicycle. Well, in future, if you would like to take your electric mobility devices there, well, it is going to be 4 meters wide. So I think we can accommodate such electric mobility devices as well. Ms. Doreen Kong, I'm also concerned about the cost, as other members were. But of course, I will take up this matter at the appropriate forum. Now, let me turn to my question. It's good if we can connect all the dots along the network. But I just wonder if you can tell us that for the parts that have been completed, what is the utilization rate like? If it is very popular, if there is a strong demand, then I can tell myself that it is easy to convince the public to spend $900 million on it. If it is not that popular, is it really that urgent to complete this remaining part of the track? Yes, administration, we know that it is popular. But of course, if you want the data, I need to go back to my office to find out. Well, we have had close liaison with the public. The message we got was that it's better for us to complete the remaining part as soon as possible. I promise to dig up the information for you. Any follow-up questions? No? Then next, Ms. Nissy Lam. Thank you, Chair. I'm not a panel member, but I'm interested in this topic because Tsuen cycle track was a topic close to my heart since 2012 when I became a DC member. Now, this is a very popular project. Well, in fact, the government has been dragging her feet. I think for the opposition camp, they would like to sort of use this story to attack the government. In the past, when the admin came to explain the matter to the people, I think the Tsuen District Council had a lot of discussion and the public officers had a hard time. Many people told us that they were expecting the cycle track when they were teenagers. Now that their own children are teenagers and still they don't get it. I know it takes many parties to complete the job. Like my colleague, I would rather focus on other things than the question of cost that can be taken up elsewhere. Well, before we move on to Tinkau, well, in fact, I know that there will be a number of trees that will be affected at the Bayview Garden. I did ask the CDD, but I don't have an updated version. If they want to widen the road, then I'm afraid that trees within the boundary of a private property will be affected. You must have it sorted out, otherwise it is not all right. For the section going to Tinkau, I want to know whether it will be close to the water or not. I think Tinkau residents are really anxious. They want to know about the latest position. They want to be updated. So that's about the section between Tinkau and Samjiang. Now, you may not actually be having any structure on the seabed, but still you have to refer to the term reclamation. You have to explain your story better, otherwise there will be misunderstanding, because Tsuen at this spot is really part of the Victoria Harbour. So please elaborate on the details when you explain the matter to the public. In the past, I did ask this question. For such major projects which will give us an iconic feature, I think you can have themed landscaping. In an early stage, we wondered if we can have jacaranda in Tsuen so that we have a thematic landscaping job, and then people would come here to look for a special feature to take their photos. That's much better than having a variety of species. Otherwise, you cannot attract more visitors to come. Thank you, Ms. Lam, for sharing with us what happened in the past. Now you were referring to stage 1 alignment. We are still working on the proposed alignment. Before we finalize on it, we'll try our best to take on board the public views. We are happy to continue with the public consultation. In early December, there will be the DC elections. When the new DCs are formed, we'll be happy to approach them to talk about this. Well, if I may remind members that when you speak, do not speak in a cocktail language. Mr. Bill Tang, I have a lot to say. I really want to support this. For the Tsuen section, there are 3 parts. You are asking for money to deal with stage 2A, but what about 1A and 2B? What about the remaining 17.3 km long track? When are we getting it so that we can have triathlons for the cyclists to go all the way from Tsuen to Ma'anshan? Well, I think it is beneficial for the sport of cycling in Hong Kong, because cycling is the only sport that is both an elite sport as well as a popular sport. For us to go from Tuen to Tsuen, I think we do want it, because in this way, Kowloon West residents don't have to go to Ma'anshan or Tai Wai every time. I think you can start from Tsuen all the way to Shengshui, so that we don't have all the learners going to Sha Tin, because Sha Tin is already overflowed with too many learner cyclists. So I do agree with the project, and I expect the 17.3 km long track to be completed ASAP. Now for Northland Town, we are going to get a cycle track as well. Over the weekend, can we not have a ferry service taking people to Sunny Bay from this anti-cycle track? And what about Chang Kwan O? Can we not have a cycle track linking up Chang Kwan O and Kowloon East? First of all, thank you, Mr. Tang. The remaining stretch will be 17.3 km long. It takes 2.5 years' time to complete the detailed design for Stage 2B. And then Stage 2B and Stage 1 will be built together. But of course, we need to look at the detailed design. As I have said, we need 4 years' time to build the part with the 200-meter long bridge. So for the remaining works, it will take 5 to 6 years' time. But everything depends on the detailed design, and then we can have a better idea. But initially speaking, it will take 5 to 6 years. As to whether there will be a pier to facilitate a ferry service transporting the bicycles, let's focus on the job before us. And for the rest, I think we should consider the feasibility. But then we know your aspirations. As to your idea of connecting Chang Kwan O with Kowloon East, but then I think it will involve the waterfront sites. Let's have a continuous waterfront first before we consider having a cycle track. I would like to ask members if you are in support of the administration's proposal to refer this to the PWC. Supported? All right, thank you. And that's it for the discussion of this item. I would like to thank the officials for your attendance. Let's move on to the next item, and that's about the Construction Industry Security of Payment Bill. Please invite the public officers to join us. For members who would like to ask questions, please press the Request to Speak button.
Welcome, government officials, for attending the meeting. I will invite the administration to walk us through the item with the aid of PowerPoint slides. Undersecretary, will you make opening remarks? Thank you. Let me make an opening remark. We have some established mechanism in the construction industry that is suitable for Hong Kong, but there is room for improvement. Very often, sometimes there is payment dispute. such that when payment is made from upper tier to lower tier contractors, there is some breakage in payment and delay in payment. I think that this will affect the supply chain and the cash flow in the industry, and that is not ideal. So we have been discussing with the industry and we have looked at the situation in Hong Kong. We now propose for some amendment, or we are proposing a bill so that the payment mechanism of the construction industry can be more healthy, that is conducive to the long-term development of Hong Kong. This is a rather technical topic. Perhaps I invite my colleagues to walk us through the paper with the aid of PowerPoint slides. Who will take this item? Mr. Tang. Thank you, Chairman. I will walk member through this construction industry security of payment bill. The construction industry is an important impetus to promote economic growth and social development in Hong Kong. It provides livelihoods for hundreds and thousands of labor force. We have a number of stakeholders, including owners, contractors, subcontractors, works consultants, and suppliers, and so on. For us to take forward a project, there is often a capital involved for advanced works, and as the construction goes on, there is other forms of payment involved. But the capital involved in the construction work is quite significant. A smooth cash flow is very important to the stakeholders in the supply chain. Stakeholders need security of payment in the construction industry. We will convene a number of large-scale projects, and the total annual construction expenditure will go to $300 billion. That is why it is so important for us to establish a security of payment bill. To better understand the payment practices of the local construction industry, the Development Bureau engaged a professional consultant to carry out a comprehensive and industry-wide survey. It was revealed that stakeholders along the supply chain in the construction industry are faced with payment problems. So what are the problems? As you can see on this PowerPoint slide, for construction subcontracts, sometimes although the lower tier contractors have completed the work, they will have to rely on the upper tier contractors having completed their project and receive their payment before the lower tier contractors are paid. This will create financial burden on the lower tier contractors, and sometimes there is no payment arrangement in the construction contracts. Sometimes claiming parties and paying parties have disputes or disagreement over the payment amount. When there is such a dispute, they have to go through arbitration after the completion of the project. Arbitration also often takes very long, and it imposes pressure on lower tier contractors, especially with small and medium companies. This situation is not unique to Hong Kong. A number of countries have legislated to handle such issues. Under such circumstances, in 2016, we established a task force for preparation of legislative proposals to the Construction Industry Security of Payment Ordinance, including members from government departments, public and private organizations, and industry representations or representatives. They have made reference to legislation in other countries. The sector or industry want the issues to be solved by way of legislation. There are two legislative proposals. First, to improve payment practices and cash flow of contract parties. We will introduce a mechanism that is binding to solve issues. The coverage and proposal of the bill are as follows. First, on coverage of the legislation. We propose that the legislation to cover all construction works contract, as well as contract of services, supply of materials and plants, including the subcontracts, including written and oral agreements, and the contract should cost no less than the threshold value. For a works contract, we're talking about $5 million. For service contracts, the threshold is $0.5 million. The legislation will cover public works of the government and statutory bodies. On private sector, it covers new works, including construction of a new building. What about existing buildings? They are covered as well, but two buildings are not included, including the existing residential buildings, including interior renovation, building maintenance, and so on. The legislation also does not include construction contracts for work not requiring approval of the building authority under the buildings ordinance, including maintenance and repair of building and shop renovation. We take into consideration that sometimes general public and small-sized enterprises tender for projects, and they are not familiar with the construction contracts and relevant legislations. It is practically difficult for them to comply with the requirements of the proposed legislation. After detailed consideration, the task force came up with the unanimous agreement that the coverage of the proposed legislation has already struck a balance and is appropriate. In terms of suggestion, we propose to improve the contract payment terms. We talked about the conditional payment. This conditional payment contract term will become ineffective after passage of the bill. And we require the paying party to respond to a payment claim within 30 days to settle the payment within 60 days upon receipt of the payment claim from the claiming party in order to ensure that the claiming parties can timely receive the entitled payment. This is the improvement of contract payment terms. We will also introduce an adjudication mechanism to resolve payment disputes. If the paying party fails to serve a payment response within the deadline, or the paying party fails to pay the omitted amount in full or on or before the payable day, or the claiming party disagrees with the amount of payment stated in the paying party's payment response, these are what we call payment disputes. Under such circumstances, the claiming party is entitled to initiate adjudication proceedings. Within 28 days, when the dispute arises, the claiming party must initiate the adjudication proceedings. And the claiming party serves an adjudication notice to the paying party and the adjudicator nominating body. The adjudicator naming body A and B must provide the adjudicators within 3 working days, and the nomination must be completed within 7 working days. And the adjudication should be completed within 55 days, including the amount to be paid by the paying party and the payment deadline, the number of days involved in the extension of time, as well as the cost of adjudication proceedings. There is often an extension of time and compensation of additional cost, but this kind of arbitration is quite difficult and is rather new in the adjudication or arbitration mechanism in Hong Kong. So in relation to this adjudication, we propose that it will be implemented in 2 phases. The first phase will be implemented in the public sector. When the adjudication mechanism becomes well developed, we will take forward the second phase in the private sector. Under specific circumstances, including that the paying party fails to pay the claiming party the omitted amount in full on or before the payable day, or after the payment dispute is determined by adjudication, the paying party fails to pay the adjudicated amount in full within the deadline, the claiming party is entitled to suspend or reduce rate of progress of the works. Under such mechanism, the claiming party has to at least 5 working days prior to the intended starting date of exercising the right, inform the claiming party so that or the paying party so that the paying party can rectify the issue, or that the owner can be prompted to intervene if necessary. After receipt of the payment, the claiming party must resume the works within 7 working days. Under the proposed legislation, the claiming party is also entitled to an extension of time to complete the contract and be paid for any loss and expenses incurred. Now we move on to the timetable. Hopefully, in early next year, we can introduce the bill to the Legislative Council, and that the bill will take effect in 1.5 years upon passage. Would members please note that the Secretariat received 10 submissions from the members of the industry. The Secretariat has sent the relevant submissions to members and administration for reference. Members who have pressed the button are as follows: Dr. Lo Guai Kwok, Doreen Con, Andrew Lam, Lau Kwok Fan, Tony Che. That is myself and Dr. Wendy Hong. 4 minutes per person, including question and answer. Dr. Lo, please. Thank you. On this payment issue of the construction site or construction industry, it has troubled the sector for a number of years, and we had a motion on subcontracting system in the council meeting. And it is necessary for us to have a subcontracting system because different companies have different expertise. It's impossible for the main contractors to employ everyone in their own company. So that is why we have this subcontracting system. Some people ask the government to hire everyone. I think that is impossible. Now I have digressed. In terms of this issue of payment in the construction industry, all along the sector wants to have protection for payment that is legally binding. Finally, this bill has come to the Legislative Council. The sector is happy about that. After years of discussion, we are finally seeing it coming into fruition. I believe that this will be discussed by the Bills Committee, but I have a few questions that's been relayed to me by the sector. Well, the sector actually support the bill in general because usually the lower tier contractors are unable to be paid when the upper tier contractors are not paid, and sometimes the frontline workers don't get paid, and sometimes they go on strike. I've heard from the sector that they want this bill to be passed as soon as possible. They support the general direction of the bill, although they disagree with some details. Sometimes, they ask if the payment period is too long. And they also question about the selection of adjudicator. The sector think that this system is feasible and a pragmatic one. I support the bill. There's been a question on the extension of time, which may delay the payment even further. Now it's also covered in the bill. I think that this is a pragmatic way to take forward the system. I don't want to ask about the details of the bill, but during the pandemic, The Development Bureau adopted a practice that is supported by the industry. The pandemic affects the supply chain and the cash flow of the industry. In public works projects, the Development Bureau provide 2% guarantee to the contractors, and they also undertake 5%, that is $5 million for the contractors so that the workers are protected. This will help the sector because the government is not spending more, but they are providing guarantee to the contractors.
多謝
Deputy Secretary, thank you, Dr. Low, for his comments. Yes, during the pandemic, we did pay in advance. This is still in existence, and this shows that we hope that there is a healthy cash flow in the industry, and this is in line with the spirit of this bill. Now, in relation to the bills, the details of the bill, they will be taken up by the Bills Committee. As to the payment periods, we did discuss the matter with the industry. We believe that our recommendation is pragmatic. A second point is that as to the extension of time, there are a lot of variables on the site. Sometimes you may be asked to have a further layer of paint. Now, in phase 2 of the bill, in relation to private sector works, extension of time will be covered in the adjudication process. This is necessary. This is because, strictly speaking, extension of time has to do with cash flow. If you can't complete the job within the period, you have to compensate for breach of the contractual terms. And that's why we want to have it covered in the second stage, because we want to be sure of the healthy status of the cash flow. Thank you. Next, Doreen Kong. I welcome this construction industry security of payment bill. We are going to implement the proposal. It is good. For subcontractors, among other stakeholders in the industry, they have been waiting for this for a long time. When it is introduced, it will improve the cash flow. It will also improve the ecology of the industry. Many subcontractors told me that the default of payment has been going on for years, and even with population intake of the building they built, they were still not able to get paid. I think we should implement the bill as soon as possible. Looking around the world, we're lagging far behind. In year 2004, Singapore passed a law. 2002, in the case of Australia. So we have been lagging behind for over a decade. Now, I have a few questions here. Now, it is said that public contracts will be covered, and then the threshold value will be $5 million. I just wonder if people would try to abuse the system and try to make use of the loophole by breaking down a contract into a few smaller contracts. And then as to the adjudicators, do we have any requirements? Will they be prevented from becoming an adjudicator if there is a conflict of interest? In the case of Singapore and Australia, they are very strict about the qualifications of the adjudicators. Now, it is said that a determination has to be made within 55 working days. Would that be until long? In other places, a month would be the time given to the adjudicators. And can the determination of the adjudicator be subject to a review? According to your proposal, it's up to the court to look at the case again. Would that be prolonging the process because you do allow the case to be taken up by the court? Yes, $5 million. $5 million isn't really a big sum in the construction industry. I don't think they will try to break up a contract into even smaller ones just to dodge the threshold value of $5 million. A smaller sum would make it even more difficult to operate. We are going to have the ANB, that is the adjudicator nominating body. We will discuss with the relevant parties to come up with a framework as to who will qualify as adjudicators. The ANB will also have a discussion about the code of conduct expected of adjudicators. Certainly, an adjudicator must not take up a case if there is a conflict of interest. So there will be a code of practice to make sure that the adjudicators will be fair and unbiased. As to the question of 55 working days, that's not the time solely for the adjudicators. Both parties have to produce or adduce evidence. So 23 days for the provision of evidence, 32 days left from the 55 days for the adjudicators to make a decision. So it means that in our experience, it may take a week's time or so to complete the process. We try to be more sort of, we try to build in a buffer. So we did say that there will be 55 days in total. Mr. Andrew Lam. Yes, we did receive the submissions. I think the Chambers of Commerce welcome the proposed bill. For relevant professional bodies, they are still worried, and they've got other suggestions. I can appreciate the content of their submissions. They don't object in principle to the passing of the bill. In relation to their worries and concerns, as the Deputy Secretary has said, there was a lengthy process of consultation with them. I want to know whether there are still some outstanding issues before the bill is presented to the LegCo. The second question is about the system of having adjudicators. I am glad to see that adjudicators need to possess certain qualifications. They need to be experienced adjudicators. Do you have an idea as to how many, or you do have an idea about of their workload, and do you have a sufficient supply of adjudicators? And what about their liabilities, and how you're going to monitor their performance? I assume that all such would be addressed in the bill. Can you not share some of the principles with us? Thank you. Mr. Lam. Yes, I know that there is support in the industry. There are also concerns about the extension of time. Some voices in the industry are saying that we shouldn't allow an adjudicator to intervene, but because it may be a determination out of context. Now, in the case of a payment dispute, extension of time cannot be overlooked, even though we are talking about a phased implementation. The adjudicator will be asked to look at the question of extension of time. Overseas experience tells us that it is not impracticable. Well, we try to have a phased approach so that, first of all, the industry understands how the adjudication will work. And we also hope that the adjudicators, the number of adjudicators will be sufficient, and they will have time to get experience before we move on to the second stage. for professional bodies, we'll continue to liaise with them. In fact, there is a task force preparing for the drafting of this bill. That will be the forum for us to continue with the consultation. Broad principles will be drafted in the bill, like requirements of the adjudicators. As to the other details, they will be accommodated in the code of practice. Say, for example, fees, whether the administration can sort of set a range of fees that can be charged. And then as to how the adjudication should be carried out and what should be done in the case of conflict of interest. So that will be addressed by way of having a code of practice. Mr. Lau Kwok Fun, I do support the government's proposals. I think through this bill we can address the question of payment default, and we can come up with a resolution system, and we can allow the lower tier contractors or subcontractors to slow down the pace of the work. They will be empowered to do so. It is good. In year 2015, the public consultation was first started. 8 years have already passed. If we can pass it immediately, then we can implement it. That's what I thought in the first place. Now I know that there will be a year's grace period. I just wonder if you can advance it. Many subcontractors told me that they have been waiting for this bill for a long time. Now they don't get paid, and yet they still have to complete the job. They even have to sell off their own property. Sometimes they have to slow down the progress, and they in fact face a counterclaim from the paying party. Now 60 days have been set as the payment period, but then in the case of a dispute, there will be a further 55 days. In other words, a total of 4 months or more. For those with cash flow problems, with those subcontractors short of cash, they are under a lot of pressure. I wonder if you can sort of compress it. Like for a claiming party, if they want to claim $1 million, but then if the main contractor thinks that it is only a matter of $500,000, so the amount in dispute is $500,000. Can we not have it this way? That is, $500,000 to be paid within the 60 days period, and then for the remaining $500,000 which is in dispute, that would be subject to adjudication. In this way, we can avoid the scenario that a subcontractor has to wait a full 4 months before they get paid and resolve the cash flow problem. That's my question for the time being. Thank you. I'd like to thank Mr. Lau for his question. Everybody has the same aspiration. That is, we want to have it done ASAP. As to why it would only be implemented a year after Gazetto. This is all because we need to pass the bill in the first place before we can decide on the details. Say, for example, making preparations for a code of practice for the adjudicators, set up a framework for the qualifications of adjudicators. So it is only right for us to deal with those parts after the passage of the bill. We believe that it will take about a year's time, but you don't need to worry. We will really be working as quickly as possible. And then for the other concern, I don't think you really have to wait for 4 months. Now for the claim, after you have put in a claim, in 30 days' time, the upper tier has to come back with a response. If there's no response, if there's a refusal to respond, or if there's a refusal to pay in full or to pay at all, then the the process will be triggered. So in other words, it won't take as long as 4 months. In 30 days, if they don't respond, if the amount is not satisfactory, then they can start working on it. And then you need to provide evidence, and then we're always talking about the maximum amount of time allowed. Usually, it won't take more than 5 or 10 working days. So for simple cases, it may need that long period of time. But of course, it takes longer for complex cases. Maybe Mr. Wong, the Deputy Secretary, can talk about the undisputed amount.
For the $500,000, that's the admitted amount. That can be paid first by the paying party, but for the dispute amount of $500,000, that will be subject to adjudication. The paying party has to pay that amount too, but if after 60 days the undisputed amount or admitted amount is not paid, that can be subject to adjudication as well. So does the paying party have to pay first? If the $500,000 is the admitted amount, then it has to be paid first. Thank you. It's my turn. I have some points of concern, and I would like to speak on behalf of my sector. So why is consultancy services covered by the construction industry security of payment bill? Is there some problem with the consultancy services? Because consultancy fee is rarely subject to adjudication. About the 55 working days issue, this is the maximum time allowed. For complicated projects, are 55 working days sufficient? Has the administration considered that? Because some projects span across a number of years. If you ask the paying party to submit all the evidence within 55 working days, it could be difficult. For court cases, there is no time limit. The defendant can call all the witnesses they want before a judgment is made. I believe that the adjudicator will be knowledgeable. Some cases are simple, others are more difficult. Will you set out different experience requirements for different adjudicators for different cases? You talked about the upper and lower tier contractors. In some countries, when the upper tier subcontractor declare bankruptcy, how should it be handled under the bill? When the upper tier contractor goes bankrupt, should the even upper tier subcontractor take up the payment? There are some levels of subcontracting. For different level of subcontractor, if they're faced with the same problem, they can go for adjudication. For the third tier subcontractor, they have to pay the fourth tier. But if the second tier subcontractor does not pay the third tier, then the third tier cannot pay the fourth tier subcontractor. When we have so many different levels of subcontractors, when they ask for adjudication at the same time, should the adjudication proceedings happen in parallel or separately? These are my few questions. Thank you. On consultancy services, this is one of the key areas of construction. In 2011, we conducted a study. There is serious default in consultancy payment that amounts to about 10% of the total payment. So that is why we want to include this item. 55 working days, you are correct. This is the maximum time allowed. But for complicated cases, we will allow for flexibility. If both parties agree, the 55 working day deadline can be extended. We understand that there are some difficult cases in the construction sector. On qualifications of adjudicators, as mentioned, we will work with A and B. We have young adjudicators that are less experienced, and we will also engage experienced adjudicators. There are different amounts of construction contracts, and we will assign different adjudicators of varying qualifications to handle different contracts. When a subcontractor or contractor goes bankrupt, we can seek payment under a regular arrangement for commercial companies. About the disputes, if they are raised by a number of subcontractors in the same contract, then we can have a joint adjudication. Thank you. Next, Mr. Louis Long. Thank you. On construction industry security of payment bill, I support the idea of it. I received 9 submissions before the meeting, and I read through them. Well, actually, there are 10 submissions. Sorry, I missed out one. I read that 2 of the submissions are from the Hong Kong IA and from the architectural sectors and organizations. They said that they support the bill and they have some concern. The concerns are reasonable. I hope that the administration can talk to these bodies that are concerned about the bill to resolve their questions. I think that they support the bill by reading their submissions. I have a question. In the PowerPoint slide, it mentions disputes on extension of time and there is early and pilot implementation in public sector. So is there only early and pilot implementation for time-related payment disputes? For other areas, they will be implemented as soon as or 1 year after the passage of the bill. In paragraph 15 of the paper, it says that the Secretary for Development will specify the effective date for implementation of the second phase when the adjudication mechanism becomes well developed. So how do you define well developed? And will you specify the effective date, or will you specify the conditions that will have to be fulfilled before the effective date is promulgated? Thank you. Thank you for your question. I believe that there are some stakeholders that are concerned about the bill. We are happy to explain to them the bill and resolve their concern. So why are we taking the disputes in different stages? The bill will take effect 1 year after the gazetto of the bill. All payment disputes, including those in the public and private sector, will be bound and regulated under the bill. But for adjudication of time-related payment disputes, it will be taken forward in the second phase. We don't have a specified day, and in the bill it says that the Secretary for Development will specify it. it could be easy for us to adjudicate the amount of contract, but the adjudication relating to the time extension is more difficult. This adjudicator nomination system is a new thing and it takes time to become well developed. Hopefully, when the system is more well developed and when we receive views from the sector, we can take forward the second phase. So we do not specify an effective date, but we will continue to monitor the progress. That's all for me. Thank you. Chairman, I have a follow-up question. So for the bill that will be introduced, you will not specify when the second phase will take effect. And the administration will reserve flexibility. You do not have a deadline or date in mind, correct? Yes. There are 2 members who would like to speak for the second round, including Ms. Doreen Kong and Mr. Lau Kok Fan. 3 minutes per member. Ms. Doreen Kong, please. Thank you, Chairman. I think that the essence of the security of payment bill lies with the adjudication mechanism. In other countries, I read their websites, they have a pool of 100 adjudicators for the adjudication mechanism to be successful. They have a lot of experienced adjudicators with 10 years of experience in the sector. Because if we don't have experienced adjudicators, the mechanism cannot be implemented smoothly 1 year after the gazettal. And we need the adjudicators to provide proof for their abilities. Adjudicators can be people other than lawyers. They can be surveyors and architects. So which body can provide or certify the experience of the potential adjudicators? In other countries, they have an organization to scrutinize the experience of the potential adjudicators. Will there be interest rate penalty when the claiming party wins? Because there is such in other places. When the claim is successful, can they ask for the upper tier contractor to pay them? Thank you. So where do the adjudicators come from? The Development Bureau will build a framework. We will set out requirements for adjudicators, including professionals like surveyors and architects on top of lawyers. We will build a framework and we will invite adjudicator nominating body, A and B, including professional bodies and an international arbitration center to be the gatekeepers. They will form panels to decide on the requirements for adjudicators. So we will create a framework with the engagement of external professional bodies to make sure that the adjudicators are qualified. I agree with Ms. Khan that we need to have a pool of adjudicators. So that is why we take forward the adjudication mechanism in phases. Can we have a penalty or interest rate penalty when the claim is successful? Well, the adjudicators can decide on the costs and the sharing of the costs. When interest rate is involved, the adjudicators can ask the paying party to pay that as well. Well, can the lower tier contractors ask the upper tier to pay. That's not what we have in mind. When the lower tier contractors are afraid that the upper tier cannot pay, they can go to the court and ask the upper tier to pay. Thank you. Next.
Mr. Lau, Deputy Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think it's important to look at the case of the adjudicators. Well, I think the Development Bureau is aware of the following. For most government contracts with the DRA, that is, even for government contracts, you need to have a consultant to resolve the disputes. In other words, the consultants will be overseeing the project, and he'll come up with impartial views and would give comments on the amount of money to be paid. Well, for this DRA, Dispute Resolution Advisor, he would be overseeing all tiers of the contractors. But then I'm afraid that his recommendation seldom gets recognition by the contractors or the subcontractors and other tiers of contracts. In the case of an adjudicator, he's never been party to the project, so how can you expect his determination to be given recognition by the contractors and subcontractors? Now, for the DRA, you may say that it is not binding, and so you want to give binding power to the determination of the adjudicators. I just wonder why you don't build on the existing system of DRAs, empower the DRA with statutory powers so that all parties will listen to the DRA. Now, if you want to replace the DRA by the adjudicators in future for government contracts, would you still expect DRAs to be recruited? That would be duplication of efforts. Now, if you can refuse to listen to the DRAs and go to adjudicators, then it means that people would always expect to go to the adjudicators ultimately. So the DRA would no longer be meaningful. I would suggest that you may as well eliminate the role of the DRAs altogether. So are you going to take a fresh look of the whole system? Experience tells us that as to why the building ordinance is getting more and more voluminous, it is all because you never take away outdated components. Now, for the DRAs, the term is Dispute Resolution Advisor. It is not a must for government contracts. For new contracts, we may not have it at all. So it isn't just a matter of resolving disputes. This advisor may advocate the spirit of cooperation. If he expects disputes to arise, he'll try his best to remind parties to avoid the dispute from realizing. So his role is different from that of an adjudicator. Well, for the DRA, he's there from day one of the contract. For the adjudicator, we are talking about independent AMBs nominating adjudicators to be selected by the parties involved. So the impartiality and the credibility would be higher. So we believe that this is the beauty of the adjudication system. The DRA is not mandatory. It did feature in past contracts. In future, once we have got the bill passed, as to whether the DRA will still be needed is up to the parties involved. DRAs have never been mandatory. Well, let me say the following. Individual architects are of the view that the tradition is that the authorized persons will oversee the quality of the project. In future, the adjudicator will make a determination. We want to know whether the authorized person's views or decisions will be affected, And what about the responsibilities of the authorized persons? Would it be the case that the AP is no longer involved once the adjudicator has a determination? So the APs are concerned about their liabilities. Can you give an initial reply, Mr. Chairman? Well, I think what you are saying is that the AP may say yes or no about the acceptance of the project. The adjudicator may have a different view, so you want to know about the issue of liability. We want to avoid this. The bill will try to address this concern. If there is a dereliction of duty, then it's a different case. We'll continue to talk to the professional bodies to make sure that we do it properly. Thank you. Well, for this topic, I think we can conclude the discussion. And we would like to thank the members for their participation. Let's move on, and then I would like to ask the Deputy Chair to chair the meeting for us for the remaining 2 items. Thank you. Now we are on the 3rd discussion item, increasing the common spatial data. We should take up the one preceding that, increase in commitment and enhancements to funding scheme to support the use of vacant government sites by non-government organizations. Public officers are coming in, and this is a funding related to a funding request. So I would like to remind members that in accordance with the rules of procedures, Rule 823A says that if you have direct or indirect pecuniary interest, please disclose the nature of your interest before you speak. We have got the Permanent Secretary here, so would you like to walk us through the paper? Thank you, Chair. Well, we are here to talk about a funding scheme, and that's for the non-government organizations, so that we can make good use of our vacant government sites, including vacant school premises, for worthy projects for the community. The funding scheme was approved by the Finance Committee in 2019. The amount was $1 billion. 27 projects have been approved, and the amount of money involved was over $500 million. Now, for the 27 projects, there are still not having had their construction approved. When that is done, they will soon reach the cap of $1 billion. A few months back, we approached the development panel, and we told the panel about our progress, and we would like to get your views as to the funding scheme, that is, whether there is room for improvement. Having listened to your suggestions, we considered the matter, and internally we got some additional resources. That is $500 million. So we'd like to increase the commitment by $500 million. And in relation to the application criteria, we'd like to have certain relaxation. So I'd like to give the floor to my colleague, Ingrid, who will give you the details. Thank you. Ms. Yu, please. Thank you, Deputy Chair. As our Permanent Secretary has said, our first proposal is to increase the commitment up to $1.5 billion by the year 2024-2025. Our commitment would reach $1 billion. So by enhancing to $1.5 billion, we can approve more projects, and then we can launch worthy projects for the community on vacant government sites. When we increase the commitment, we believe that there's room for us to have enhancements. First of all, for those occupying an area of more than 2,000 meters square, we can enhance the funding ceiling. Well, experience tells us that for projects with a larger site area and for projects lacking vehicular access, they would incur a higher cost. So we have sort of listed 4 projects here. Each of them will have a site area exceeding 2,000 meters square. Their project cost is close to or even exceeding the funding cap, and they need to look elsewhere to fill the financial gap. As it has been said, we did come to the development panel to gather your views, and we believe that there's room for us to raise the ceiling for funding. For projects having a site area larger than 2,000 meters square, we say that for such projects, we should increase the funding ceiling. That is, they can get $10 million more, and with the total capped at $70 million. As I have said, other than projects requiring more money because of a larger site area, for projects that lack vehicular access, when they carry out the project, they need to incur more resources to transport large machineries, or they need to get additional manpower and time. And as shown on the slide, we want to revitalize a former school premises to use it as a theater education center. It lacks vehicular access. So in other words, the transportation of materials would take the form of people walking up and down the stairs. And sometimes they may need cranes to move the materials. That would add to the cost of the project. As I have said, if the project involves sites that lack vehicular access, again, we'd like to raise the funding ceiling by $10 million to $70 million. And then, if an individual project meets both of the conditions above, that is site area larger than 2,000 meters square or lacking vehicular access, then the funding ceiling can be increased by $20 million to $80 million in total. In addition, we believe that we can expand the scope of funding. Currently, we say that there is a prerequisite, that is, there should be the STT application approval before they can come to us for funding approval. We have got comments from the applicants telling us that when you apply for STT, usually you need to come up with engineering design drawings, technical assessments, and feasibility studies. An NGO may be of a smaller scale or they are less resourceful, then they may not be able to afford the associated costs. Therefore, we believe that we can lower the entrance threshold, and so we suggest that we can expand the scope of funding. For an NGO that approaches us, they can also get a subsidy for the advanced work in the form of drawings or assessments. The cap will be $2 million. In case the funding is the funding application is successful, then the $2 million will be deducted from the funding cap of either $60 million or $70 million or $80 million, provided that it qualifies for a higher level of funding cap. Well, we believe that projects on vacant government sites can be used for social welfare, culture and arts, as well as sports purposes. There are also other views, and we want to come back with a response. It is said that maybe we should open the funding scheme to different kinds of organizations so that they can run projects on vacant government sites. Last time we said that we do welcome various social enterprises or NGOs to apply, as long as they can benefit the community as long as it is for public use, then they can meet the basic criteria. Say, for example, if the recipients or the users will be rural people, then the applicant would qualify. Now on the slide, we are showing an application, and it is a case making use of a former shuttlecock school premises. So the vacant school premises will be converted into a Hakka culture center. So the open space will be used by the public, and they want to renovate the building to showcase village culture. It is within the Robin Nest Country Park and Linma Hang, so they would like to add certain conservation elements as well. So our funding would cover that as well. There's one other suggestion. Now, in order to make good use of public resources, since the projects would be sort of temporary in nature, so it is better not spend too much money on the need to meet strict requirements. Now, since we aren't talking about permanent structures, so perhaps we shouldn't be that strict about the requirements, but still we need to safeguard the public safety. Therefore, as long as they are in line with the legal requirements, as long as they don't violate any safety requirements, we will allow for the most cost-effective approach. I think on this note, I would like to pause in relation to our sort of paper.
委員提問嘅。
Now I will invite members to put question. I will read out the order: Dr. Chaman Khan, Ms. Lim So Wai, Dr. Wendy Hong, Mr. Andrew Lam, and myself. Each member will have 4 minutes, including question and answer. Dr. Chow, please. Thank you, Chairman. I support the enhancement of the funding scheme by expanding the coverage and funding ceiling. There will be a number of schools that will be closed down in the future. Will the government regularize the funding scheme and further increase the funding ceiling? Second, on the list, I see a number of renowned applicants that are popular organizations, but I don't see any schools. So can schools or universities apply for this funding scheme? Because I don't see any school on the list in the annex. You said that fitting out and furnitures are not covered by the funding scheme. But whenever Development Bureau come to the PWSC for funding, they always include furniture and fitting out in their project. Can we include these furnitures and fitting out in the funding scheme? Can we provide more support to the NGOs? I think the most difficult part of this application of funding is the preparation of application documents, including site investigation and technical assessment. Apart from funding them, can the government provide manpower or engage organizations to help them in the preparation of the application so that they can take forward the project as soon as possible? Thank you. Permanent Secretary, please. Thank you, Dr. Chow, for your comments. We will increase the commitment by $500,000. We will continue to review the scheme. If it's popular and if we are able to secure resources, we want to continue with the project or scheme. There are 27 projects that have been approved. There are some organizations that want to make use of vacant government land and vacant school for teaching purposes. but they are not tertiary institutions or schools. They are kindergartens that want to help children with special learning needs. We don't have limitations on the types of applicants. If primary and secondary schools or tertiary institutions want to apply for the funding scheme and to make use of vacant government land, we don't have any restrictions as long as they fulfill the conditions, as long as they are charitable organization under the Inland Revenue Ordinance, then they are eligible. We don't have a high threshold. On furnitures, well, in 2019, when we first announced this scheme, we wanted to fund organizations so that they can do one-off rehabilitation work. We stated very clearly that if they want to do fitting out work, the applicant has to be responsible for that. We have to strike a balance. If we expand our scope of coverage of the funding scheme, it will reduce the number of applications that we can approve. On manpower, NGOs may not have much experience in construction, so under the Development Bureau, we do have a team of colleagues that come from Works Department to oversee this $1 billion scheme that we have. They will work hand in hand with the applicants. When applicants come across technical difficulties, we do have a team to support them. Thank you. Next, Ms. Lam So-Wai. Thank you, Deputy Chairman. The government has collected views from the community, and they have implemented some enhancement programs, and they supported Food Angel in establishing their project of a food production center. Until October this year, $572.8 million have been approved to take forward worthy projects. Most of them are transitional housing and centers for children with SEN. As mentioned by Dr. Chow, I noticed some vacant land in a lot of districts, including vacant schools. Say in Clearwater Bay, there is a vacant school that has been abandoned for a number of years. I hope that the administration can review the number of vacant schools in Hong Kong. In To Kwa Wan, Kowloon City, there is another vacant school. Can we incorporate vacant schools into this scheme so that small NGOs and local bodies can take forward projects that are beneficial to the community? Welfare, sports and culture are important, but for villages in Clearwater Bay, can we have glamping there? This is something that we should promote. Currently, the ceiling is $60 million. Is demolition cost involved? Because it takes money to demolish the building after it's been used. Thank you. Permanent Secretary, please. Thank you, Ms. Lam, for your comment. Funding scheme. This funding scheme covers a vacant school. Ms. Lam can help us in the promotion, interested parties can go to the Lands Department website. We have a geo map. There are 60 vacant schools in Hong Kong and 480 pieces of vacant government land. For the 60 vacant schools, they are mostly located in the new territories because vacant schools in the urban area are more popular. If there are NGOs that are interested in making use of the vacant schools, they can go onto the Lands Department's website. If necessary, they can reach out to Lands Department for application of short-term tenancy. Our funding scheme covers vacant school. Your second point on whether the $60 million covered demolition work. Revitalization of a school premises does not involve any demolition works, but if the applicant wants to demolish structures, then it's covered in the $60 million ceiling. Some vacant schools are out of the list on the Lands Department website. If you can provide us with the information, say the school in Clearwater Bay that you mentioned, we can make relevant corrections on the Lands Department website. Thank you. Next, Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you, Deputy Chairman. This scheme is to make use of vacant government sites for temporary and short-term use. And by short term, we're talking about 5 years and a maximum of 7 years. But it involves a huge commitment. In the first phase, we spent $1 billion, and we are raising the commitment by another $500,000. I have questions about this scheme because there's no mention as to how the premises or site will be used after the short-term tenancy. If we are to demolish, it will be a waste because millions of dollars are spent. The permanent secretary said that the construction requirements will be lowered because the project is temporary in nature. I think that it is a waste if we are only using the premises for 5 to 7 years. And I think that some projects are not effective. For transitional housing, there are some units that are not populated. Currently, we subsidize people and draw them to the transitional housing units. One of my colleagues tried to apply for transitional housing. Some NGOs did not confirm the status of their residency before approving the housing units. I think that we have to step up monitoring of transitional housing. After the $1 billion has been spent, I think that the administration should review the scheme. Now our financial position is being threatened by the gloomy economic outlook. I think that we have to review it. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hong, for your question and comment. We make use of this short-term tenancy approach to lease out vacant government sites and land. Say when the 5-year short-term tenancy is up and that we don't have any long-term planning for the said vacant sites, then we will extend the tenancy by quarters. So although the tenancy is short-term in nature, as long as there is no long-term planning for the particular government sites or land, the organizations can continue to make use of the site after 5 years. Regardless of the funding used or adopted, if the site is abandoned or premises is abandoned after a few years, that will definitely be a waste. When the tenancy is approved for 5 years, and after the completion or the expiry date of the tenancy, we will not demolish the structures. We will put the structure up onto our website to see if other organizations are interested in making use of it. When the, say, vacant schools are being renovated already, I believe that some organizations will be interested in using it for other purposes. When we seek for further commitment next time, we will review the cost effectiveness of the scheme. In the paper submitted to the Finance Committee, we will detail it.
有好多問
I mentioned the problems arising from the transitional housing projects, like attracting applicants to join and then advising people to split their households for the sake of easier application. I think you really have to address that. It isn't just for the Development Bureau. We need to refer the case to the Housing Authority as well. Next, Mr. Andrew Lam. Thank you, Chair. First of all, I need to commend the government, in particular the team responsible for the scheme. They have taken on board many views and suggestions. Well, I think let's go back to the original purpose of the scheme. We do have vacant sites. Of course, the assumption is that you don't have any appropriate permanent uses, and so the vacant government sites are made available. I'm sure if there are suitable permanent uses, such sites will not be included in the list. I'm sure if somebody is interested in using it on a permanent basis, they can approach the government, and the government won't rule out the possibility, right? So to me, the main point is about making good use of the resources. They should be put to beneficial use, and we should fund the projects. Of course, we're not talking about commercial operations. We are subsidizing the NGOs. Even if you fund the NGOs, they may not always be able to make good use of the public resources, the public money. Now, to me, I think you have made a lot of progress, really huge progress. An organization may not know what is on offer. Say, for example, someone would like to run a home for abandoned animals. Can I just call you on the phone and ask you for advice and let me know what is on offer? Would it be possible for you to tell us what is available, say a number of sites that would be available? And since I know you have got certain basic requirements, but then what about the professional advice? Can you sort of offer professional advice as well? Because at the end of the day, they can also save public resources. Because if they are sort of at a loss as to where to turn, who or where to turn to, then they would, at the end of the day, waste your time as well as public resources. So can you not sort of take that up as well? Thank you. Permanent Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Lam, for your suggestion. Currently, for the Development Bureau, we have got a dedicated team that takes up the projects under the scheme. They do have this duty. That is, they will sort of hand in hand work together with the NGOs. Experience tells us that NGOs may not be that well experienced in running such projects. They might not have encountered certain issues, though they are quite common in our eyes. If it is a simple case, they don't have to walk through the town planning process. But if they do, then we are trying to relax the requirements, and they can get a maximum of $2 million to go through the process. They may need advice from different departments. Our dedicated team can help the applicant in visiting different government departments like fire services, drainage, etc. So we will consider the matter together with the NGO applicants and try to resort to a more cost-effective option to resolve the problem. All right, if no other members would like to speak, then it's my turn. I welcome the proposal to increase the commitment and enhance the scheme. Now, of course, we are mainly talking about temporary users. The project should be of a no-frills nature, and it shouldn't take that much time. Well, in some cases, it takes more than 2 years' time to sign the contract, to having it approved. They haven't even started the detailed design. For applications 20 and 22, 2 years have already passed, and yet they have yet to have site investigation. So I want to know what is the problem, and have you ever tried to help them? Can you not help them to get waivers? Or if they have to get the waiver, it may be difficult, or it may take longer time to do so. As Mr. Andrew Lam has said, well, for such professional advice, if you can offer them with such professional advice, it can save time. There are also I've also received requests for help, like people may want to have animal boarding homes. I provided some assistance to them on a voluntary basis, but I may not always be able to help. So I want to know if the Development Bureau has found out as to why certain cases have taken that long. Is it because they encountered difficulties? If not, is it a matter of dragging their feet? Should we allow that to continue? If they haven't encountered any difficulties, if it is simply a matter of they have internal problems, or if they have other reasons to drag their feet, then what would you do? I want to know if you have tried to understand from them as to why they haven't completed the projects. Well, for the 27 projects approved, 10 of them have completed the construction, and in other words, they are already operational. For 7 of them, the construction is ongoing. It is expected that the last one will be completed by 2025. Some will be completed earlier. For the remaining 10 of them, they are at the stage of detailed design. So by 2024, the latest, they will be able to complete the detailed design, and then they can come to us to apply for the construction costs. Of course, there's always room to further compress the time needed or taken. As to why, in some cases, it has taken them more time than expected. Well, sometimes slopes are involved, and you need to spend more time on the site investigation. And as you have said, the organization itself isn't really that experienced in design and planning. Of course, we do try to give guidance, but after all, it is their application and they have to run the project. So our role is that of providing assistance and giving support. Sometimes we may try to remind them and urge them to gather their pace. But there are many factors that result in a project needing more time to complete. But still, 10 of them have started their operation, 7 have their construction underway, and will soon be completed. So in other words, we don't think that each and every of them is taking an unduly long period of time to complete. Now, you want to increase the commitment, you want to enhance the scheme. I think you need to impose a timetable on the government departments as well as the proponent. You need to play the role as a gatekeeper. As the Permanent Secretary has said, sometimes a slope is involved. If you think that it may not be that appropriate or feasible, you may sort of say no in the first place. So perhaps the Development Bureau should look at such cases. Other than increasing the commitment, perhaps you should explore other areas of improvement. Next, Mr. Lee Chen-keung. Sorry, speaker is off mic. Can you hear me? No. Please switch on the microphone for Mr. Lee. Thank you, Chair. I think you can hear me, right? We should maximize the site. This is what lawmakers advocate, in particular when it comes to vacant government sites. I think we want to put them to good use to benefit the public. That's what we want to achieve, and therefore we welcome this paper. But still, there are a few questions from me. First of all, for vacant government sites, we find them all over the place. You get them in all the 18 districts, under the flyover, in the green belts, etc. Now, if one is interested in applying for the use of such a site, what is the workflow like? The chair must have noticed, like I did, that is sometimes a case takes a long period of time. Do you have a KPI for them? Many organizations, as a result of advancement of technology or green concerns, would like to have electric vehicles and chargers. So can we not use such vacant government sites to provide a service to recharge the electric vehicles? I want to know if you have ever talked to other policy bureaus, like talking to the Home and Youth Affairs Bureau, so as to coordinate among yourselves in all the 18 districts, because I want to know whether the projects can benefit the local residents. If a site is not accessible by a vehicular access, then would it be meaningful to impose a KPI on them, and how many residents can benefit from it? Like in the case of the guide dog training center, do you know how many guide dogs have been trained? And then for the time available for the proponents to run the projects is 7 years, the maximum number of years available. Ms. Ho, for STTs, the minimum period of time would be 7 years. But then, upon expiry of the tenancy, if the site is not used for the permanent uses, then the proponent or the applicant can still get a renewal. So 7 years is not the maximum. The 7 years period is the duration of the first tenancy. Well, you wonder perhaps we can expedite the progress. Surely you can say so. But then for the STTs granted by the Lands Department to make good use of vacant government sites and vacant school premises, I think the total number has been increasing all the time. Let's have a cut-off at 2019. For the 4 years following 2019, including 2023, 80 sites have been granted. But then prior to that, there were only 19. So a matter of 19 versus 80 sites. Of course, a lot is involved. The Lands Department is gathering the speed. In the past, it took a long time to grant the application. This is because the applicants usually find it difficult to get policy support from the bureaus. A few years back, the Development Bureau intervened. If an applicant found it difficult to get policy support, then the Development Bureau will examine the case and we will make inquiries with the Policy Bureau. If the policy support can be offered, then it will make it easier to get approval from the Lands Department. I would like to defer to my colleague Ingrid, and she can give you some examples as to why NGOs spent time on processing their applications subject to your agreement, Chair.
亦都多謝議員嘅提問。
Thank you, Chairman. We can give you some examples as to why some projects take so long to be completed. Because when they are conducting the design and asking views from local residents, say when an applicant wants to build animal shelters, they have to create some sewage pipelines and facilities. Some local residents may have questions with the relevant facilities because some pipelines of sewage may be close to their homes and they want the facilities to be far away from their homes. When such things happen, the applicant have to work with the local residents and have to redesign their project time and again so that it meets the expectations of the residents. Time is involved there. Thank you. Chairman, I would like to ask an additional question. These sites are located in 18 districts of Hong Kong. I think that communication between different departments is very important. But priority should be accorded to different projects. Say there are homeless people in all 18 districts in Hong Kong. Should we first encourage organizations to make use of modular integrated constructions to create homes for the homeless? Some people who are subject to family violence need emergency placement as well. Should we accord priority to building facilities for them? Can you clarify if you have discussion with the NGOs? I think that mostly the NGOs are the one to initiate application. Would the Permanent Secretary explain more? Thank you. This is an important point. When the Lands Department has a vacant site or school, they will first ask the government departments if they want to make use of the relevant schools or sites for other purposes. Say for Ecological and Environment Bureau want to build chargers for electric vehicles, they can apply to the Lands Department and make use of the site. We have some 500 vacant government sites and schools. Still, after asking all the government departments to see if they want to make use of those sites and schools, for these 500 sites, they will be put onto the Lands Department website for NGOs to apply for funding. So the NGOs are the one to initiate application and they will decide on the use of the site. So that's the procedures. The government will first see if they want to use the vacant sites and schools first until we allow the NGOs to apply for those sites. Thank you. So do members support the funding proposal? So if you all support it, then it's okay. Now we move on to the next item, development of common spatial data infrastructure portal. Would the relevant government departments come in?
OK。哦。呢一個議程。好，唔該晒啊！呢個
Thank you. We have Deputy Secretary Mr. Gary Poon and Head of Spatial Data Office of the Development Bureau, Mr. Chen Yu-chen. Perhaps I first invite the relevant department to speak first. This item involves funding proposal, so would members please note that in accordance with Rule 83A of the Rules of Procedure, if you have any direct or indirect pecuniary interest of relating to the item, please disclose the nature of your interest before you speak. The government plans to seek funding approval from the Legislative Council during the scrutiny of the Appropriation Bill 2024. Thank you. Would the government please walk us through the item? Thank you. We want to talk about the development of Common Spatial Data Infrastructure project and seek members' support in our funding approval of $150 million so that we can continue to improve the portal. Common Spatial Data Infrastructure (CSDI) portal is a key initiative under the Smart City Blueprint for Hong Kong to provide users with information infrastructure to promote the sharing of spatial data and support the development of various smart city operations. In 2022, the Development Bureau got approval for a non-recurrent commitment for the development of CSDI portal. To facilitate discussion, let me first talk about what CSDI portal is. CSDI means data with geographical elements. We have an address ourselves, but when it's online, it's represented in a digital manner in the form of geotagging. And we can interface that with other information so that it become a form of spatial data. Say for census and population survey, we can tag the data with the district, and we can also tag the location of the parking space on the portal or CSDI. That's like our uploading photos onto social media and tagging the photo with geographical location so that different users can locate where the photo was taken. It facilitates government departments uploading their spatial data onto the platform. The data has to come with a standardized format so that when it's uploaded onto the platform or portal, it can be used by other users. It's used by a large number of users, including government departments, businesses, academia, and the public. That facilitates big data analysis and promulgation of the result and development of application programming interface. In order for the members of the public to enjoy a CSDI portal, we have launched 4 quick win projects in 2020. Last year, we rolled out the CSDI portal. In December, it's opened for publics to use. The numbers are very encouraging. Until October 2023, over 171,000 datasets downloads have been recorded, and the number of API service calls continue to grow, reaching over 930 million requests. The reason why this portal is so popular is because we have large number of data sets. We have over 740 spatial data sets that exceed the 320 data sets in the original plan that covers a large areas including lands, transportation, construction, public utilities, and so on. There are a number of benefits brought to the day-to-day life. For example, when there is a map functions on mobile phone applications, it often involves spatial data. Some users may not go onto our platform, but we actually work with the application developers, and they told us that they make use of spatial data on our CSDI portal. So by providing support to these application developers, we facilitate or we bring convenience to daily life of members of the public. We have an application called Walking Assistant that is a smart navigation tool that help visually impaired persons to navigate in Kowloon East. And the application is awarded with the Gold Award in Hong Kong ICT Awards 2023 Smart Mobility, Smart Transport. The second benefit is that it facilitates improvement to public services. The spatial data can assist deployment of fire engines and ambulances in route planning and can also assist in search and rescue operations in remote areas. The Lands Department and the Transport Department also made use of the spatial data to come up with on mobile application to provide quality service to the members of the public. The third benefit is that it supports the development of digital economy. Spatial data can have its commercial value unleashed, boosting the development of digital economy when its use is coupled with value-added and innovative features. We understand that some companies have created realistic street car racing game and simulated flight environment making use of spatial data. And these projects are of commercial value as well. With so many benefits, we want to promote the CSDI portal further. We work together with different bureaus and departments, including Civil Service College, to conduct various kinds of training and workshops for colleagues in government departments and bureaus to nurture their mindsets and encourage them to apply spatial data. We also established this geospatial lab to encourage primary, secondary, and tertiary students to make good use of spatial data in problem solving or development of applications with practical value. We have reached out to over 30,000 people through our activities in the past 3 years. After the rolling out of the portal, we will go into the next phase of our project. To continue to improve the project, we need $160 million of funding to support the operation of the portal and to improve the functions and to subscribe to government cloud services and purchase softwares required and support conversion of data sets so that they can be uploaded onto the portal along with promotion and education work. When we are taking forward this project to the next level, we have 4 major directions. First, we will explore more sources of spatial data. Most of the spatial data on our portal are supplied by the government departments. In the future, we want to include spatial data provided by organizations other than government departments, including spatial data from building information modeling and real-time data from Internet of Things. We will also add in real-time environmental elements or data. With these information, we can enhance the quality of people's life. We can help commercial companies in analyzing the people flow of certain streets and roads. And we can also help academia in presenting their findings or study. We will continue to improve the user interface of the portal and introduce more user-friendly common tools and application. If we can make it convenient for people to make use of the CSDI portal, we can encourage them in innovative work by creating applications. So together with the IT field and the education sector, we continue to take forward the CSDI initiative. We are currently talking to the Cyberport and the Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks. We will continue to provide training to users. Apart from that, we will promote the innovative application and digital twin. To further unleash the potential of CSDI in new development areas, from environmental impact assessment to urban design, we want to encourage them to make use of spatial design or data, and we want to encourage them to make use of a digital twin. We will continue to work with other cities and cities in the Greater Bay Area to share experience in the use of spatial data, including experience in taking forward digital twin. Lastly, we need to ensure cybersecurity. We will keep in view the functionalities of CSDI and make enhancement, and we will make sure that the portal is up to par. That's our presentation. We hope that the panel will continue to support the Common Spatial Data Infrastructure portal and our funding proposal. My colleagues and I are happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 3 members would like to ask questions. Lam So Wai, Andrew Lam, and myself. I'll give the floor to Ms. Lam 4 minutes for question and answer. Thank you, Deputy Chair. Here we are talking about the Common Spatial Data Infrastructure Portal. $150 million were approved in the past. Now they ask for $160 million more. In the year 2017, the Smart City Development Blueprint was published. Like myself, many residents didn't find Hong Kong any smarter. I try to understand better the common spatial data infrastructure. I'm afraid we are still at a nursery in a nursery class when it comes to the CSDI. Say, for example, we find it impossible to get any links about the waiting time at the A&E departments of our hospitals. We spent $150 million on this infrastructure. I don't know how to be accountable to my constituents. The other day, I was in a Tamer Park. There were smart lampposts. Maybe they are more for the disciplined services, like the police, to enforce the law. Are the smart lampposts included in the CSDI? We don't get them in each and every district. It seems that they're only found in the Central and Western District. What about the rural area? Nowadays, we want to have information about traffic jams and also vacant parking spaces. Motorists would want to know about traffic congestion, available parking spaces. So maybe you should cooperate with the Transport Department as well as the SWD so that by clicking a link, we get the information easily. In this way, you can justify your funding request. Mind you, it's a huge sum, $160 million. It is a portal. But it seems that at the district level, we don't seem to draw any benefits from it. Is it open to organizations at a local level, in addition to the government departments like the Lands Department and the Highways Department? What about NGOs? Now we are getting the care teams for the 18 districts. I think care team members would like to know about the households so that we can refer them to ward officers of lawmakers and district council members and other service agents. Now you have the I'm Smart portal. Can that be sort of combined with the CSDI so as to further benefit the citizens? Now I've got a final question. Sorry, Deputy Chair. It is said that the utilization rate is high, but then which departments who are making frequent use of the CSDI portal? Thank you. Deputy Secretary, please. Thank you, Ms. Lam, for your questions. For the CSDI portal, it is one of the important facilities of the Smart City Blueprint. It is not the entirety of the Smart City Blueprint. It plays a very important role. We have emphasized that it is an infrastructure item. As mentioned in my earlier briefing, the general public may not be using the portal directly when they use their mobile phones, but in fact, for the applications on your mobile phone, if there are map-related functions, then spatial data would be involved. What are the sources of the spatial data? Would it be the developer of the application that gets the information or not, or elsewhere? In fact, we understand from the developers that they get the spatial data from us, whether it is e-commerce, internet shopping, or applications to help you to find a restaurant. In fact, all such would rely on information from us. So the general public may not be using our portal directly, but then for the map functions on their mobile applications, in fact, directly or indirectly are connected with our spatial data. Now for the CSDI portal, it is like a huge data set. We want to facilitate the developers of mobile applications. If they want to help with route planning, then they will get the relevant spatial data from this portal. Others may want to know about the arrival time of bus routes, then they will get the relevant information as well. We are not here to substitute the apps that citizens are using, but in order to enhance the functions of the apps that they are using, we are providing the spatial data. So in fact, it is closely related to the daily lives of our citizens. Can I have a follow-up quick one, please? Do you know what data are used in different kinds of applications? For this portal, we provide spatial data as to which user or which application is making use of a particular data. We don't track the usage, but then it is hugely popular. We have already got more than 170,000 downloads, and for the service call requests, in as short as 2 years, there were 930 million. So it is not irrelevant data. It is in fact data that is useful for the citizens. That's why it has been so popular. Mr. Andrew Lam. Even lawmakers find it difficult to comprehend, not to mention the general public. Here you talk about BIM, digital twin. Of course, I know what they mean, but not everybody understands. So Ms. Lam was giving you a sort of friendly reminder. We live in the superstructure. We don't care and we don't know what the foundation is like. Now you tell us that 170,000 people live in the superstructure. I'm not saying that the information is not useful, but it doesn't help you in getting what you want. Now currently, for the I'm Smart, you have to make frequent use of the spatial data. And for smart systems of the government, a lot of them have to make use of spatial data. You must be aware of that. That forms the foundation of such systems. You can sort of present your story from the other perspective as to what data is being downloaded by the developer of the applications. Maybe you can trace it, you can track it. You may not have specific information, but you can cite certain examples. If you're able to present such information, it will be useful. I really hope that when you ask for the funding, you can provide this information as well. Now, lawmakers can join hands and work together. If 40 other lawmakers query your case, then you'll have trouble. Now, I think what is important is the linking up of the data among departments so that we can analyze the data. That's more important than the mere dissemination of data. But currently, it appears to me that the portal is merely disseminating data rather than having big data analytics. So I hope you can facilitate the interaction and interconnection of the data within the government, so that users can benefit from a wider use of the information. The FS last year talked about auditing the departments in the efforts to promote a smart government. So what is the role of this portal? I think you can shed some light on it. Mr. Poon, thank you, Mr. Lam, for your observation and your comments. In fact, the CSDI portal supports a lot of applications of the government. I'm sure examples can be given by Mr. Chen, head of the Spatial Data Office. We've also mobilized the departments to analyze the data so as to facilitate their decision-making and policy formulation. If I may defer to Mr. Chen, head of Spatial Data Office. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Lam and Ms. Lam, for their reminders. I think I can compare the portal to a data supermarket. We cannot prepare all the dishes. Well, developers will use our data to come up with different types of cuisines. Now, for the EPD, they have got a central platform for EIAs. Well, they do get basic information from the CSDI. But at the same time, they also feed new data to us, hoping that among departments there will be more interaction and more interconnections. I do agree with Mr. Lam. That is, we want to have connections among the departments. And we have been liaising with different departments, hoping that when the data from 2 or 3 departments are grouped or integrated together, we can generate something new. Like in the case of Samshepo, we try to see if local data can be helpful, like the residents' information, buildings information, like whether a building has got a lift. In the past, the information was scattered all over the place. Now we can integrate the information. But of course, it may not be visible to a resident just by using their mobile applications. What we need would be developers getting the data from this supermarket and come up with a new dish.
咧都有 show
I know that there is a PowerPoint slide showing applications or mobile applications created by government departments, including the Transport Department and the Lands Department. They make use of the spatial data in the CSDI portal to create mobile applications that facilitates or bring convenience to people's daily life. If we can have a super portal to incorporate everything, that would be the best. For people who want to navigate, they can make use of an app. I think that it would be more convenient for them to have different apps with different functions. For example, when they want to locate a restaurant, they can use an application that is dedicated for that. We want to create a spatial data ecosystem to facilitate innovation and technology. Thank you. Mr. Andrew Lam? Sorry, I need to go to the other room. Now it's my turn. We've heard from the Deputy Secretary and the Head of Spatial Data. We understand your vision. It would be the best if this portal is enjoyed by a large number of people. You mentioned that you have put in some ingredients in your portal so that chefs can make use of the ingredients to cook dishes for members of the public. I understand the concept. The application developers will be the one to create applications that bring convenience to people's life. Without good ingredients, chefs are unable to come up with a good dish despite their skills. I understand the importance of the CSDI portal, and you will standardize the data sets and deadlines for submission of spatial data among different departments. Because your spatial data is being used in a number of mobile applications, if all data is being used, then members of the public may suffer. CSDI infrastructure will put in update tagging in the data set so that users know when this spatial data was being updated. Do you have any review mechanism to make sure that the spatial data on your platform or portal is accurate? Because data can be wrong and outdated. Do you have any mechanisms to ensure that the data on your portal is accurate? So that is why the data on our portal comes from government departments. That's the data they gather from their day-to-day work, but they have to put in geotagging in their spatial data. And we rely on the government departments in carrying out their duties by providing geotagging of non-spatial data. For spatial data submitted by organizations other than government departments, how do we ensure that the data is accurate? Should we add some disclaimers so that users know what data is supplied by the government and what is not supplied by the government? We may have to include that. We don't want to rule out data from community organizations. We want to incorporate more types of spatial data to enrich our portal. I agree with this as the starting point, but in other cities and countries, they are not afraid of not having data, but they are more worried about the accuracy of the spatial data. As mentioned by your colleague, we need to have a standardized format of different spatial data and a deadline for submission of data should be aligned among different departments. Perhaps I invite the head of Spatial Data Office to supplement. First of all, we want to consolidate the data and put them up first onto our portal. We have a metadata in the portal so that users know the source of the data, when it's updated, and so on. That's like the place of origin, the expiry date on a pack of meat in a supermarket. That is for the user to decide whether the data is suitable for them. The source of spatial data of the portal comes from government departments. They have motivation or incentive to update their spatial data. Of course, we have a task force to communicate with the relevant government departments. Perhaps we can align the date of updating different spatial data. We will try to do that. It's hard for us to set out a clear deadline for update, but for data that has not been updated in a year or two, we should not allow that to happen or exist. I hope that you will continue to improve the portal. If there is no other question, I believe that most members here support the proposal, including those who have left. As our next step, we will have the government submit the funding proposal to the Finance Committee. Next agenda item. Any other business? If there is no any other business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.